Sounds like we're getting officially banned, eh? This will be interesting going forward. If you are watching me on TikTok, though, it's nothing new that I ask you guys every single time I go live to please switch over to YouTube at Ask Ivy, because TikTok is infamous for cutting me off for no reason. Like, this will be ended probably at about 20 minutes in, because they just like to bully me. Okay, so if you are tuning in through TikTok, no, this will get cut off. Even though I report it all the time, there will be a ton of you on there. You guys will be beautiful, giving the hearts, giving the gifts, leaving comments, and TikTok will just cut me off and be like, no one was there. So they just despise me. All right, so switch over to YouTube at Ask Ivy. And with the ban going on, and because we don't know exactly what direction that's going to go in, this is a great time for you guys to do it anyways. Welcome everyone on Instagram. Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome on Facebook and on YouTube. As far as everyone tuning in through YouTube, I did recently find out a bunch of people are watching and viewing and seemingly commenting and engaging, but not subscribing. So please do so. Comments are appreciated. If everyone could give this video a thumbs up wherever you are. Donations are also appreciated, but not required, of course. I do want to say thank you to my YouTube members, Masubi, Lisa Cece, Jill Marie, Stella Marie, Cody, Kat Bathory, Deanna Altieri, MeLove716, Andrea M., Jan Phillips, Vanessa, Mariposa, Heather G., Yolanda Fisher, Mary, Jordan, Audra, Erica Trotter, Angie Johnson, Robin Hartling, Chicken Mama, Tristan Marion, Edgar Velardes, Jennifer Cole. You guys are awesome. Okay, and for any of my YouTube members who leave a question or a comment, they get moved right up to the front of the line. Jill, my beautiful producer, will be taking your questions and comments from all platforms tonight. So go ahead and start dropping those now. A couple quick announcements while we let people tune in. I'll be at quite a few events this upcoming spring, summer. Everything's booking up really, really fast this year. So here's a list of upcoming events if you wanted to save the date. I don't have all of these up on my website just yet, so you can't necessarily pre-book a reading with me. But soon. So we have the Spirits with Spirits Psychic Fair at the Winery at Margin Manor. That's going to be May 28th. Is that accurate? May 28th? And June 23rd? Well, we have one coming up this upcoming weekend. So April 28th. And you guys can pre-book a reading with me. I think I have a couple slots left. I don't know. Don't take my word for that. But at Margin Manor Winery in Appleton, New York, we're doing an Ivy League Psychic Fair. So this upcoming weekend, and I'll be there with a bunch of certified readers from the Ivy League Psychic Academy. So you can go onto my website, ivyriverapsychicmedium.com, and book with whoever you want to be with. I would recommend pre-booking, but you don't have to. You could take your shot at a walk-in wine tasting. The property is absolutely beautiful. You have to check the place out. Okay, so the hauntingly beautiful Margin Manor Winery. What else do we have going on, Jill? We have, okay, so these are some of the future events where I'll be. It's called the Relay for Life. This is Sunday, June 2nd in Grand Island, New York. So you could pre-book readings with me or come and support Relay for Life. It's a cancer fundraiser. I will also be at Strawberry Festival. This is Saturday, June 8th through Sunday, June 9th at Merritt Winery Estate. This is in Forestville, New York, and that was a fantastic event. Tons going on there, live music, tons of vendors, amazing food. It was a really good time, so check it out. I will also be at the Oliver Street Pride Fest. This is Saturday, June 15th. This is in Tonawanda, New York. So gay, trans, whatever. Okay. We're all there just celebrating Pride. And that was a really awesome event. It was really massive too. So tons going on, a lot of artists there. All right, so you guys may want to check that out. Also, my numerology course is starting this upcoming. Is that accurate? It's a 3-week course. It's running on Thursdays. So don't pay attention to what's on the screen there with that. I had the wrong day of the week when I originally did this, but it is 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern if you want to be there live. You could also do video download, okay, and you can come in person. So the numerology course starts not this upcoming Thursday, but the following Thursday, and it'll go 3 weeks. You can get yourself registered now. We also have the last week of the spiritual life coach training here through Roots Revival Interfaith, but you guys can get the video downloads on that if you want to become a spiritual life coach. That's been an amazing experience. And the psychic mediumship course, I am doing an in-person course. If you've been waiting to take it and you didn't want to do evergreen, which means you could jump in anytime, you're still getting all the perks of the traditional course, working with the public, working with the assistant teachers, working directly with me, all that great stuff. But if you wanted to do it with your fellow classmates in person or live online, I am going to be offering that again because I have to refilm all 28 weeks. I filmed it last time during COVID and it's just gross to look at. So you could register now. That's going to be January of 2025. We start with that. Yeah, and Jill's reminding me here that there are payment plans available. Absolutely. All right, so hope to see you guys for some of this. I know there's a bunch of other stuff going on, but I want to get into today's sermon. So welcome, everyone. I am Pastor Ivy Rivera. I'm a psychic medium, a Taino airwalk, and this is Roots Revival Interfaith, where we believe in the 3 truths in the universe. That's intuitive intelligence, astrology, and numerology. If you pay attention to these 3 truths, they will lead and guide you to the healing that you need, keep you on the right path in your life, and ultimately help you with integrity and character development to go out and heal and guide others. So what we're talking about here today are the hauntings of abuse and trauma, the tools that you can use to exorcise those hauntings from your life. All old sermons are up anywhere that you can listen to a podcast, and that's always at Ask Ivy. I cannot talk today. Like, it's full on Mercury retrograde. But also here on YouTube at Ask Ivy, if you go onto the Roots Revival playlist, you can listen to old sermons. All right. So, you know, when Spirit started really showing me that this needed to be a topic, I was being shown different things that the viewers, you guys, the community are going through at this time, which is no doubt a collective energy connected to some of the astrological movements that are happening. And I started to notice in writing out the sermon, the curriculum, you know, the outline for today, how much of it applied to my own life personally. And I realize that the types of breakthroughs that we seem to be on the brink of. Now, this doesn't mean it's going to happen. You have to do the work to make it happen. But it would appear that these are some breakthroughs that may never occur again on this scale. Like, they're absolutely massive recognitions, epiphany moments. Okay, so I'm excited to talk about this. I also think that we have to be realistic when discussing a topic like this, how exhausting it can be, and how we need to be careful that we're not rushing ourselves, because there's already going to be a natural tendency to want to get through it, to want to get to the finish line, right? To want to wrap it up already and put this in your rear view mirror. However, that isn't realistic, and you want to think of healing from trauma and or abuse as being more like a relay, not a sprint, a circular pattern of healing with many layers like an onion, not a linear path from A to B. I recently had someone say to me, and it was disappointing because they're a light worker. I recently had someone say to me, "Well, I went to therapy and I did my healing and I took a year off, so I'm fine. I don't need to go back there." And I was like, "Whoa, this individual is going to be hitting some massive brick walls." And typically when you start to think that way, you become very susceptible to escapism and avoidance, which could lead to drug and alcohol abuse issues, hypersexuality, porn addiction, overeating, I mean, excessive video game playing, I don't care, whatever. Okay. You all of a sudden have to work out 4 hours a day. You're now a mountain climber, you're an extreme biker, thrilled to, like, it's all avoidance. Okay. It's all just another form of getting addicted to something else so that you don't have to deal with your shit. And what we're going to be talking about today is just how to stay calm and centered through it all, but mostly how to identify what's actually going on, because you may be overlooking a bunch of stuff that can help you progress forward in your healing journey. So, what do I mean by the hauntings of abuse and trauma? What I mean is that something happens in your life that impacts you so severely that for the rest of your life, you suffer traumatic effects. And we naturally, for the sake of survival, mask the effects themselves. So there are very few of us that have successful therapists that are really leading us through the trauma as soon as it happens. There are very few of us that even know we necessarily are suffering from trauma as soon as it happens, or we have the money to pay a good therapist, even if we can find. Okay, most of us don't have that luxury. Most of us are recognizing probably about 2 years after the traumatic event or the abuse that we're really messed up and that we've changed at the core of who we are and our day-to-day living, our relationships, the way we feel about life, or maybe we feel nothing, we feel numb, we feel nothing for life. There's no excitement. Maybe your dreams have taken on a very dark tone. And so maybe you used to enjoy resting or sleeping and, things like this. So you can't enjoy that anymore. Everything changes. And that's probably where most of you are. You recognize that something occurred in your life, or maybe you had, even from childhood, an abusive or neglectful childhood, and you're not feeling your best. But by the time we recognize this, so much infiltration from that experience has occurred. And again, you've cleverly masked it. And that's what we want to take a look at. So let's start keeping a journal with us. Okay. Everyone has this very crafty thing in their phone called voice memos. And I love this thing. It's absolutely addictive. You could just talk into it, and treat every thought or inspiration you're having almost like you're interviewing yourself. You're interviewing your inner child or your higher mind, So whether it's easier for you to talk something out, it's easier for you to write something out, keep some type of, note-taking tool on you while you go through this journey. I would say that the first thing is awareness. So the key to being successful in finding the different ways that you're being haunted by a particular incident or a traumatic series of events is to pay attention all day, every day, as much as you possibly can, and be dedicated to doing that. Pay attention to yourself, meaning what you're thinking, when your thoughts fluctuate dramatically, notably, when your feelings, your emotions fluctuate drastically. I swear to God, this is horrible, you guys. This is the thing with Mercury in retrograde. I'm not even hearing myself necessarily saying things wrong. Okay, that's how bad it is at this point. I have Gemini in like 7 houses, so I'm ruled by Mercury. Hopefully you guys can figure out what the hell I'm saying today. Now, what the point I'm trying to get at here is that you're going to notice when you're not necessarily massively triggered, not having an emotional meltdown or a physical breakdown, but you're shifting. You're just shifting. Your thoughts have changed dramatically, and it's usually right after your thoughts have changed that your emotions are going to really start presenting as being either heavy, anxious, okay, maybe it's just a little bit nervous, fidgety, irritable. This sort of, with heaviness, it's like a depression or a terrible foreboding or a sickness to your stomach. Maybe you feel all of a sudden like, I was enjoying myself, but now I want to leave. I'm done enjoying. I'm turning off. You may feel like you went from being a little extroverted to completely 150% introverted in that moment. There could be this sense of like something bad is about to happen or the other shoe's about to drop and I just need to get, to somewhere else or pick up another project and leave this thing behind. It's very ADD-like, okay? It could feel very OCD-like. These are things that you want to start noticing. In your mindfulness journey on a daily basis, when do you feel a major change? And write it down. That's it. Okay. If you're at work, go to the bathroom, you go back to your desk, but journal it out or do that voice clip noting when it happened. Now, you may not have time in that moment to fully examine what just went on, but later on, you need to take a look at what happened for the day. Okay. And analyze what happened in your environment, what happened in your thoughts, what may have triggered this change. And I think one of the most notable things we see is a strong desire to either all of a sudden start like overeating or to focus on something that's, almost like an addiction where it's like, I feel like I have to have a drink right away. I feel like I need a cigarette right away. I have to have this thing. You may also notice that there are a lot of changes in the way you feel about the people around you. Or if here's an example, you're having a conversation with someone and everything is normal. And then all of a sudden you start to feel either paranoid or that you don't want to talk to this person anymore, or that there's something negative coming off of them, or you're being judged, whatever it is. Okay. We're all different. We don't have time to get into everything today. Every individual is going to have their own reactions and changes based on whatever your trauma or your abuse was. These are areas that you're going to want to work on. Do the homework, do the research, fall down the rabbit holes, watch the YouTube videos. If you have a good therapist, talk to them. What does this look like for you? That process of feeling stable and then going into some level of instability and trying to shove it down, mask it, and act as though it did not happen. It's like you're being haunted by something and you don't know what. Now, I notice it most strongly with me when I'm sleeping. So I make sure that during my waking hours, I'm not overscheduling myself. I'm fortunate enough to work for myself, so I control how many people I'm going to be dealing with or how I'm going to be dealing with those people. So I've minimized a lot of my triggers. I have a very traumatic background. I have childhood abuse and neglect. I was homeless for 6 years. My mother told me to leave the house when I was 9. We have everything from sexual trauma to emotional abuse to physical abuse from not just my parents, but the family as a whole. I mean, and then it just adds, because when you grow up in an environment like that, you naturally attract that in other people, and people that are sociopaths and narcissists and want to victimize others are going to search out those that already have their boundaries broken down, or they have no boundaries at all from the abuse. You're like a kicked dog, you're just laying low and just trying to survive through life. And you may not even realize that that's what you're giving off. So then the rest of my life was being victimized over and over and over again, repeatedly. I'm also Hispanic, and obviously I'm a girl. Okay. So you could just add on everything that comes along with societal abuse, in regards to being a minority, double minority. Now, what I have found then for me is that I have to limit, like I said, I have to limit the environments I get involved in. I'm very careful to make sure that my PTSD is not getting triggered. I do have OCD, and I was diagnosed with that as a child. And so I'm also careful around those triggers. But ultimately, given the work that I do, I'm working constantly with the public. So I think it's helpful to find a workspace and plan accordingly. Any social activities you're going to get involved in, plan accordingly for any type of chores you have to do, driving, shopping, going to the mall. You can predict where a lot of discomfort or triggers are going to come from, and you can not necessarily avoid those things, but you can work around them probably more carefully than what you are doing. So I would also recommend doing some of that. Now, what happens for me though, because I've gotten pretty good at all of that, is that my dream state is where I'm the most haunted. So I love dreaming. I'm obsessed with dream analysis and symbology. And, I have a symbology book coming out soon, and it's a passion of mine. But I've also found that it's the biggest gateway for my healing to occur. And I resent that a great deal. So I tend to, again, not be triggered and haunted all day when I'm awake as much as I am while I'm sleeping and dreaming. And one of the ways this has happened for me is through repetitive dreams. And it may be something like having the same dream from the time I was like 5 years old when a point of trauma or abuse occurred. And here I am now 44, and I'm having the same dream over and over and over again. Okay. I would love to hear in the comment sections if you guys are experiencing similar things. Okay. If we could share and support each other in this, feel free. Okay. This is a safe space. Again, I will be taking your questions and comments at the end, all platforms, all questions and comments. So go ahead and post if I don't get to something. Now, a great example for me is having these dreams where people who abused me continue to show up. Now that's frustrating because I teach classes on astral travel, lucid dreaming, different techniques that you can use in your sleep state to control the environment, to deliberately have breakthroughs, to confront things that are toxic and negative, to evolve, to new levels. But I'll tell you, when you have trauma, you are going to experience points in your sleep state where you have these repeat people or situations or environments showing up, and you're like, what more can I do to overcome this? I'm using every tool in my toolbox. I can master, on a personal note, a certain type of lucid dreaming technique that's very difficult to master, where I'm controlling my sleep state and moving deliberately through those dreams. And I'm so proud of myself, but then I get slammed with another trauma set of dreams. And it's like I never learned a single thing. It's like none of that applies anymore. Try to see all of these obstacles as opportunities instead of blocks, as growth potential versus failure for yourself, and just keep at it. I guarantee eventually you are going to have a breakthrough. Good example is a dream that I've been having, I want to say for at least 3 years, where one of my parents shows up in this dream, and it's a big house, many, many levels to this house, and a lot of crawl spaces or short door frames, stairs going up typically. And then you can crawl in through the walls, and there's more of this house and more of this house and secret, rooms. And sometimes the rooms are huge and expansive, and I'm intrigued by what I find in there. And other times it's enclosed, a really heavy feeling energy. It just really depends. And every time I enter into one of these heavy spaces, these crawl spaces or these secret rooms, I can feel the haunting. It feels like there's paranormal energy there. And often there's something like cats or animals being trapped there. Okay. That my parent had deliberately left and sort of abandoned in these rooms. And as an animal lover and an empath, I naturally want to help them to escape. And I notice that I am sick and tired of seeing my parent in this dream because I've done cord cutting repeatedly. I've done the work in therapy for years and years. Okay. I've used every lucid dreaming technique and tool, and nothing is working. Why is this person here again? Why are these trapped cats or animals here again? Why am I back in this house again? Why did this keep happening? So the last set of dreams I had, again, with this theme went on for, I would say, at least 3 years. I was fed up. And recently I had my breakthrough. Now, I didn't have that breakthrough because I kept pushing and pushing and pushing with the lucid dreaming techniques. I had my breakthrough because I decided to analyze the hell out of this thing while I was awake and pay attention to any other triggers I may be having in my waking hours, and anything that was going on with the astrology that was stirring it up, and anything that I knew I was ready to break free from, almost like a generational curse. I was approaching a point where I was really, really ready to break free. And so I would stay open to processing wherever I was without judgment, giving myself the time and the space, the self-love, the extra care. If I felt really burdened by my thoughts and my feelings and my flashbacks and my emotions that day, I would allow myself to pull away from, I'm not big on canceling plans or obligations. Like, I would really have to be on my deathbed in order to do that. But, there were other ways that I could feel okay about pulling away. Maybe changing up my to-do list for that day. If I had to do a ton of shopping that day, maybe I put it off till later in the week, or I go ahead and I throw a little money at the problem and I get Instacart, or I do whatever it is. I took better care of myself while I was going through this process, knowing how exhausting this work is and how it can also take a toll on your immune system. I would say the last 3 years, while I've been dealing with a lot of this, I've noticed I've been more susceptible to catching things. Nothing huge, but little things here and there. You have to take better care of yourself. Invest in this like you would invest in your paycheck. Invest in this like you would a love partnership you really want to see work out. Okay. Invest in this as you would, I don't know, your hygiene or your dental care. Okay. Like, be precise and allow yourself to grow in the way that you would treat seeds that were recently planted in the soil that you want to see grow and you want to have fruition. You want to have a harvest. Okay. You have to nurture these things. So I went ahead and I did that. And then I noticed, and it was amazing. I mean, because I thought I was never going to get out of this particular cycle of dream. That's a long time. 3 years is a long time to be working at it actively and have no breakthrough like that. So I all of a sudden had this dream that I was back. Okay. I was back in that, that house. My parent was there. The cats were there trapped. All the weird rooms of negativity and that paranormal feel were there. And in that dream went and managed to finally open all the doors and all the windows, and I released the cats. I also went up in this dream, this one room where a sibling would always be, a sibling who was very abusive to me when I was younger, very narcissistic. I went into this person's room and they were gone. Their stuff was still there, but they were gone. And my parent was no longer there in that dream. And I realized that what had happened was that the trauma, the abuse from that parent made me feel like a trapped animal. It made me feel responsible for helping and saving and rescuing others who went through similar trauma. It made me feel like I couldn't get rid of the space that my toxic sibling was taking up, sort of rent-free in my head. And it made me feel that none of the cord cutting I had been doing with this abusive parent was working. And I was able to identify all these other areas of my life where this abuse had infiltrated. And I had put my abusive parent up on a pedestal and I had said, it's all about them. They did this. Every time I'm triggered, every time I fail, every time I have a meltdown, every time I want to rescue someone else or I have wounded healer syndrome, every time, I was crediting all of that back to the abusive parent, the original source of the trauma and abuse, when in actuality, I had taken it over. I was the cats. I was the sibling. I was the house. I was everything. It's all me. It is my acceptance of what happened, allowing it to infiltrate my personality, my life, my choices. I had essentially adopted the abuse and the trauma into me. And so everything that was there in these dreams had really nothing to do with the original trauma or the original abuser. It had everything to do with me and how I was allowing the infiltration of that trauma to affect all these other areas of my life. And through the symbology, you can see what that means. A house, different rooms in a house mean different aspects of your life. A cat means a different aspect of your life. A sibling is a different set of circumstances or aspect of your life. Everything in the symbology and dream analysis, for example, right, means another area of your life. And it became very crystal clear. Now, you can also apply that to your waking hours. It's the same type of analysis. But it was really interesting that after I did not have the dream at all for a while. And when I did enter into another house, the house had changed dramatically and there were no trapped animals. And the parent did show up, but was unable to speak or move. When the parent shows up now, they are like a statue in the back corner. And based on where they show up or who else or what else is going on in that dream, I'm able to analyze where I still need to do a little bit more work. That they are the core of the wound. That's where it started. The trauma began. The abuse occurred. It's connected to that person. Okay. And I can read the symbology and I can move about freely now. So it's like I'm on this whole new level. And, that's just something that works for me. Okay, is analyzing symbology, the dream analysis, who's there, where am I, what's going on. I I had a harder time doing it while I was awake because that's not as safe a space for me. But I did the work. It took 3 years, but I did the work while I was awake, and that led me to those breakthroughs, okay? So, I wanna break down a couple areas where I think you guys can look for your triggers, and for those of you who've been in therapy, I'm sure this is not like, riveting information, or, I'm sure you've heard of this before. But nonetheless, I think it's important to, I mean, I've been to a lot of different kinds of therapists and they didn't ever mention this to me. And I was never told to like take notes or to really script every day and analyze, at least at the end of the day. If you can't do it while you're at work or when you're busy, at the end of the day before you go to sleep, really try to process what happened that day. I never had a therapist tell me to do that. Okay. So like these things would have been beneficial. So here's what I'm recommending you guys do. Here are some of my own personal triggers as well. Yes, the dreams. Absolutely. Okay. But also different smells. Right? I'll notice I smell something and I am 8 years old again and I just want to go like into the fetal position. Like I am done. Wherever I'm leaving, like that's it, wherever it is. Okay. Um, maybe some of the smells are bringing back something pleasant for you as well, and you should pay attention to the high vibration, not just the low vibration of these things, because we do want to have positive connotations. And for a lot of people, not necessarily with a traumatic event, but with abuse, a lot of us went through abusive situations that lasted a really long time. And there were also positive experiences that went on during that time. There could have been moments of love or sharing and, nurturing and all kinds of things. Maybe even some of you who went through a traumatic event, pay attention to different smells and try not to rule them out as being negative that are associated with what you went through, because maybe the healing and the people that showed up for you after your trauma, or even at an extreme point of trauma, from the EMTs to the nurses that were there, to friends and family or therapists who showed up for you afterward, maybe there were positive smells associated with that. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater is what I'm saying. Look into it a little deeper, okay? But I can get really triggered by smells, and that'll take me right back into a flashback. Sounds. Music is a big one. Anyone who went through a lot of trauma in the 80s, I think it has a particularly triggering kind of sound to it that I just cannot stand. But again, you may find more pleasant, music can pull you out of that. Pay attention to the way you react to loud noises, yelling, certain types of voices. Okay, sounds of any kind. Different places. What places trigger you? Maybe you can't, go into certain atmospheres and there's no logical reasoning behind that. But you have definitely started to associate that place with a previous trauma or abusive situation. So pay attention to how you feel in different places. Not just places themselves, but also the way a place feels. Like I cannot go into Walmart. Okay. I will drive an hour out of town before I will go into Walmart because there's a lot of accumulation of like mental illness and negativity in there. There just is. And I can't be around it. I can't. And I would never want to use or touch anything I would ever purchase from that store. I would certainly never eat it or consume it or put it on my body. Like if I had to buy lotion or something, I would never be able to. So, you have to pay attention to the way places make you feel, meaning the energy that's there, but also are they big or small? I don't like being in enclosed spaces, for example. That will trigger me. And that's from feeling trapped as a kid. Okay. So maybe you're great at your job, but you cannot be in a cubicle. or your office needs to be really big, or you need to not have an office. You need just a laptop and you can move around with your work. Pay attention to how you feel in small spaces, okay, or spaces with maybe like no windows, or having the door closed, okay? It's funny how things like this can haunt you and you don't even realize you're having a reaction to it. Pay attention to how you feel around people. This is huge. I think that there are a lot of people, if you've gone through trauma or you've gone through abuse or neglect or whatever, there could be a lot of people you just don't like. Okay. You could reach a point in your life where you're like, I literally don't like anybody. Okay. That's it. I like no one. I will deal with people when I absolutely must. I don't like anybody anymore. That's fine. That makes a lot of sense. But we don't want to inappropriately pass judgment on people who haven't earned that level of, negativity. People may surprise you. This is one of those situations where you want to say, okay, you can't judge a book by its cover. Sometimes we can get so good at reading energy because those who are marginalized, traumatized, were abused, we are the ultimate psychics and mediums and empaths of the world. We automatically achieve highest level intuitive intelligence because of these traumas. But the thing is, we can also overdo it and we can read the energy and then it's put into a category, right? There's like okay and bad. There may not be a lot of goods out there, okay? But there's like it's okay or it's not okay. And what we want to realize is that a lot of people were inappropriately or were mislabeling, let's say, these are people who've gone through what we've gone through. These are people who carry the energy of that same experience within them. There could be a lot there. So, be mindful, but we can also be drawn to the most toxic people in the world. We call this trauma bonding nowadays, right? So you may be drawn to sociopaths and narcissists. You may be drawn to abusers. You may be drawn to people who want to siphon your energy, take advantage of you, and you get an opportunity to be that martyr. You can rescue them and you may not even notice this is going on. So be careful. I would do a lot of it. I used to say back when I was dating, I used to say, anyone I'm drawn to, I should probably run. And anyone I'm not attracted to, I should probably give that person a chance. And that was like fairly accurate. Be careful with that one. Okay. Cause this is where some of the most damage can reoccur in the people that we deal with. Pay attention to doing new things. You may be haunted in this area and not even know it. You may label yourself as someone who procrastinates, someone who is lazy, someone who would love to have a week of bed rot and do nothing. You may feel as though you're not motivated to do certain things, but that's not true. That's not who you are. That's not what's happening here at all. It could very well be that you're haunted literally in this area from the trauma or abuse that you experienced. And now you have a resistance to going into new territory in your life. This could affect you in getting a new job, especially if you went through any kind of financial abuse or trauma. You may be really inclined to stay at a toxic job or something that just isn't helping you grow at all, only because you're getting a paycheck, only because you have medical and dental, whatever it is. You will not leave. You have to break free and clear from that. A lot of people do this in regards to their routines. And routines can help a lot of us who are neurodivergent, but it can also become a crutch. So we have to be careful with that. Now, you may not want to break a routine also like going out socially, even though you really need to feed your social life more. And so it's almost like, your emotions tell your brain, shut down, become exhausted, get sick. You may literally manifest exhaustion or illness within yourself to avoid, going out in social situations. It could be anything. Okay. Again, I don't have time to break all these down today. I mean, everyone's going to be different, but I would love to hear you guys share in the comments. Even if you're watching this later through video, or whatever, once it's published here on YouTube at Ask Ivy, I would love to hear in the comments, where you find yourself doing this. You are avoiding new things, and it depends on the trauma. A lot of people do this with food. They won't try every single time they go to a restaurant. They're going to the same restaurant. They're ordering the same thing. They bring up the same topics. It's like every time you go to a restaurant with this person, they're just replaying something. It's like you're stuck in a movie. It's like a record on repeat. You're like, what is happening here? You could see it in other people. And I would recommend you start doing that too, not in a judgmental way. And by God, I wouldn't bring it up, but like, don't be weird about it. But definitely start watching other people and noticing in them when they do any of the things I've talked about. Okay. And they're not processing or doing anything with it. Just a reminder, okay, before I go on to something else here, what was I talking about in regards to the infiltration of the original traumatic event or abuse? What I mean is that you could be haunted in a million different areas and not even realizing it, and giving all the credit back only and exclusively to the original traumatic event or person who harmed you. Okay. So don't give too much credit back there. Start looking deeper at all the ways it's gotten into your world, your personality, your choices, your lifestyle. All right, let's move on to holding yourself accountable. Here's what you could do to hold yourself more accountable. You can ask regularly, how am I maintaining this? Have a little meeting with yourself. Okay. You can sit for 15 to 20 minutes. I would never recommend exceeding that because our imaginations can get carried away. But 15 to 20 minutes with yourself, maybe a couple times a week, 3 is good. And ask, how am I maintaining the trauma, the abuse in my life? What choices am I making? This is you holding yourself accountable. This is you taking responsibility, not giving the credit elsewhere, okay, to the outside world. You have to be raw and honest about that, and I would keep a journal on this. Where are you feeling guilt, shame, or obligation toward your old traumatized self or other people who are not healing or are dysfunctional, to situations that you feel obligated to stay in, like a toxic family environment, a toxic community? We tend to over-identify with community and family dynamics because we've been raised up in cult-like systems. And that says blood is thicker than water and family is everything. No, it isn't. Even if you look at the astrology and you look at your numerology and you look at your life contract, a lot of us who were born into abuse or trauma, it's literally nothing more than showing up as a light to maybe show some of these people living in darkness the way. And there may be a couple other people here and there in your family who had it right? The aunt who disappeared. Maybe you had a great grandmother who's incredibly intuitive and healing, but you've got mostly dysfunctional, toxic people in this environment. And you stay because you have been raised up in this cult, let's say, that tells you you'll be alone if you leave, or how dare you, or that you're hurting everyone. They don't want you to change. They don't want you to grow. You may get criticized for that. Who do you think you are? Oh, look at you changing and growing. There could be a lot of shame in that. You may also have, again, this is on you, adopted into your personality that fear, and you're making it almost like a realization that does not have to occur, that maybe you won't be able to meet new people. Maybe you can't make it out in the world on your own. Maybe you can't go no contact with the family and build your own family out in the world, which is how it's actually supposed to be for many of us, for all of us, really, just to different degrees. Maybe you think you can't do that. I assure you, you can. I assure you. Okay. But it's very hard to let in the new energy when you're holding on to the old. It's like a big block. Every time the bus stops, somebody's got to get off. In order for a new door to open, another door has to close. And so be careful. Okay. You're not in one of those situations where you're giving into the guilt, you're giving into the shame, you're giving into the cult, you're giving into the programming, you're giving into the obligation, whatever it is. Now, for me, it wasn't about leaving behind the family. I don't really care. It wasn't about leaving behind, anyone. I'm pretty good with that. I could detach real easily. But the thing is, I have trouble letting go of parts of myself that are wounded. Almost like if I evolve, I may be abandoning inner Ivy, 9-year-old sad inner Ivy. It's like I have decided that I am that hurt, and I have even decided that there are parts of my personality that have evolved from the trauma and the abuse. Not only that, but the years of survival where I was like on the street for 6 years, for example. Can you imagine, right? Being a 14-year-old girl, like living on the streets and the things that went on during that time. Well, I accumulated a lot of skill during that time. And I have adopted even those levels of trauma that I've marked as being like good or productive, right? Or that's the only way to be. I have to learn to let go of that. But every time I do that and I confront that, I feel very nervous, like I'm abandoning a part of me, So it's different for a lot of different people. I would love to hear who has that, where it's like you. It's not about other people. It's about you. It's about a part of you, your identity. And I think that happens probably more for those of us who go through the trauma and abuse as a kid when you're developing, especially like, 5 to 6 years old, personality is really wrapping up in development. And then in your teenage years, which was a big thing for me, like 14 to 16, those were peak years of living on the streets. And, having to make my own family, make my own communities survive. And so like when you're developing your sense of identity in your teenage years and you're going through a lot of trauma or abuse, that could make more sense for you guys. But I would warn anyone, even if, you have a trauma and you're in your 40s, your 50s, you're listening to this in your 30s, whatever, be careful, because you could almost developmentally get stuck there, for the rest of your life. It's not who you are. We are not our experiences. We're not. We were never our experiences. We were never meant to be our experiences. We're meant to grow and evolve and transmute through our experiences, but that can get easily clouded. And I don't think that the therapeutic field, especially here in America, is very eager to alert you to that, because they make a lot of money off of the dysfunction, off of the repeat visits, off of the pills, okay? All of that. Let's talk about adopting your pain as part of your personality also. Okay, I already touched on that a little bit, but I think that's really common to see. And I think that's really where a lot of us can also get into super bad habits, having friends that you can only party with, not having, genuine friends, maybe, finding yourself making like rash decisions or doing a lot of sort of a dopamine hits, needing a dopamine hits and sort of radical, changes in your life, sporadic things, quickly like breaking off a healthy relationship, should you have one, or just, leaving a job that you really shouldn't. Just be careful, okay, that you're not doing this because you've adopted your pain into your personality. well, I drink, that's what I do. And now like drinking is like your personality. If you're fortunate enough to not have alcoholism, the disease of alcoholism, you know what I mean? You should feel blessed and make sure you stop that immediately, because there are some people who are really going to struggle to get out of that one. We have to be so careful with that escapism and avoidance. Then you need to ask who. Okay. So we're still in this section here today of talking about how can you hold yourself more accountable. You need to analyze your relationships. People, this may be the biggest one of all. Who do you surround yourself with? Okay. I don't care if you've had to cut off everyone in your life because they're toxic and you no longer have family or friends and you're completely rebuilding and this is all you have, okay, is showing up here for a live like this and being in community, with like Roots or, support groups online. Good enough. Okay. That is a great place to start. Many of us older people would have killed to have had opportunities like this. It's enough. Okay. It's a good place to be. But for those of you who won't do the work and you won't stop engaging with those who are toxic, negative, abusive, feed the problem, or won't do, their own healing, what you're really doing is like trauma bonding, or, you're codependent. You just don't want to be alone. So you have to be careful. Now, one of the really important things for me has always been being really careful about attracting people who have paranormal attachments or possessions. And this tends to go hand in hand with people who are violent. They like to fight. Maybe they do have narcissistic personality disorder, or they're sociopathic. They have drug and alcohol abuse issues. These are typically people who have paranormal attachments and possessions. And that's like gum on the bottom of your shoe. That's going to get stuck on you. So you have to really be very careful and like pass heavy judgment on that. Okay. Cut that out. Certainly don't allow it in your home. I was also in more recent years, far more aware of intimacy levels, not meaning sexual intimacy. That's great. If that happens, it happens. But like actual intimacy, which is intellectual exchange and emotional exchange with active listening, and being careful in recent years to prioritize those types of relationships and notice more when it's happening and be like, I'm going to take those people and I'm going to totally upgrade them in my life. They are full on promotion. I don't care if this was just an acquaintance. Let's spend more time together. And it's been sad for me in the last year and a half. I've had to lose a couple people who I realized they either weren't ever doing that, or they were just doing it sporadically, or like we didn't really have that bond. And I'm okay with that. But looking at people I had spent quite a lot of time with, and I had given them that like high value friend status, and they really weren't earning it. And a lot of people, and this is hard and this is sad to admit, but sometimes it was there and then it disappeared, maybe because they're not growing or they're not healing and doing their stuff. And so it just soured, the relationship soured, but that is huge. And I would recommend that you pay really close attention to when you feel as though you're being heard and you are a better, more efficient, active listener when you're with this other person and you guys are exchanging on all types of different topics that make you feel kind of lit up inside. It could be on anything. But whatever, it makes you feel good. So that when you stop talking to that person, you notice you walk away with an elevated energy level. You don't feel depleted. You don't feel like something's wrong. You don't feel nervous. You didn't think the whole time of like how you could get out. Now, those of us that are like, what's the word I'm looking for? If you have some type of a disorder, that may always be there. Be realistic about that. You do that with everybody. Okay. That's fine. But for the most part, you can still, even then, compare people who just don't make you feel good. They're not uplifting. So exchanges where you realize you are intellectually and emotionally having levels up in the intimacy, assisting you in your own growth and evolution. And it's in those seemingly mundane everyday interactions that lead to spiritual development. So you're going to notice that goes hand in hand with it. Wow, since I've been talking with this new coworker at the coffee pot, a few times a week, I notice I'm having more vivid dreams. I'm having more prophecy. I feel more centered and connected. I'm really drawn to that person's energy. We seem to really authentically enjoy each other. Little things like this count for everything. Find those people. Those are your people. Stick to your people. Ditch the rest. How do you plan to move forward with your future goals, your future self? Bye, TikTok. Didn't I say it? Did I call it? TikTok hates me. So hopefully everyone who was on TikTok heeded the warning and has switched over here to YouTube at Ask Ivy. Rest in peace, TikTok. So yes, I'm bitter. All right. So, I think you need to ask what your plans are regularly. Maybe every 6 weeks or so. Can you update the list that you have of how it is that you're moving forward to become more of your future self? What does that look like? The idea of visualizing who it is that you want to become, meaning you are already that person. That's your higher mind. That's your higher vibration. You're already that person. You are now just recognizing that you want to be more in alignment with that person. So you want to think a certain way. You want to carry yourself physically a certain way. You want to physically feel a certain way. You want to emotionally feel a certain way. You want to be surrounded by certain types of people. Whatever it is, you should visualize regularly who your future self is and how you are actively moving toward becoming that. And it's so important to always remember that the key to success is removing blocks. So many people focus on I'm going to do and do and do and do and do and achieve and push and push and push. And they don't know why they're just like a mouse on a wheel, or it's like they're in quicksand. What the hell's gone wrong? What's gone wrong is that you haven't spent any time detoxing. You haven't spent any time removing the brick walls. You haven't removed the blocks and obstacles that are there. So there's no fluidity. There's no flow. You can't get anywhere. Okay. It's like chains around your ankles. So be mindful of this part of the process, especially. And I would just say this as we wrap it up. Be prepared for setbacks and don't be hard on yourself. I can't even express in words how frustrated I would be over the last few years where I was dealing with that stupid repeat dream of the cat. The cats. Okay, now I see cats and I'm like, I don't ever want to look at cats again. Okay. I would wake up crying some nights because I had literally used every lucid dreaming technique and tool and astral travel and healing. And I was doing everything and I could not have a breakthrough. Sometimes it's just not time. Sometimes there are other things you're supposed to be developing simultaneously alongside with, right, this one breakthrough that you want to have. This one healing experience, you're treating it like it's A to B, linear healing, and it isn't. So we have to go back. It's like layers of an onion. Eat the onion. Remember, it's circular. Okay. It's going to come up over and over and over again, probably for the rest of your life, honestly, but it gets easier. It becomes easier to identify. You have to be willing to see what you are misconstruing as a setback as simply an opportunity to analyze this a little bit more, get curious about it. And again, allow yourself to take breaks. Allow yourself to not only take breaks from everything we talked about today in the healing work. Okay. Sometimes, like, who wants to deal with this all the time? Just forget about it for a while. That's fine. Take a month off or a few weeks, whatever. But, you should also make sure that when you are triggered or you are dealing with something or something resurrects itself and you're like, I really thought that was dealt with, see it as a new layer. Okay. Another level potential, and give yourself the space. Just say, I'm going to readjust my schedule. I'm going to readjust what I do for a while, because I know that I am going to find my way through this. And that process is going to be really exhausting. Okay. More so than a full-time career, without a doubt. And you have to make room for it. Okay. So your homework is to do this exercise. I want you to, like we were talking a minute ago about seeing your future self, I want you guys to spend some time tonight visualizing who it is that you really are, what you really want to feel in your life, what you want to be surrounded by, who you want to be surrounded by, how you want to think, how you want to carry yourself and feel physically, energetically, all of that. I want you to visualize your future self. And keep leaning into that, okay, on a daily basis. Every time you feel like you're shrinking or you're falling back into those trauma states, those triggers and reactions, I want you to visualize who you are becoming. And remember, that's who you already are, or you wouldn't be able to visualize it. We're just getting there, okay? Replace that. I want to take questions. Any questions and comments? Jill, my beautiful producer, will be popping those up real quick before I get on to these. Thanks everyone for tuning in. And if you could give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment of any kind, subscribe if you're here on YouTube. If you want to hit the join button, you can see my 3 different tiers for becoming a member. Donations are appreciated here for Roots Revival Interfaith, but not required, of course. And you can watch old Roots Revival Interfaith sermons here on YouTube at Ask Ivy under the Roots Revival playlist, or anywhere you listen to a podcast at Ask Ivy or Roots Revival Interfaith. All right. Chocolate Kiz says, how do we know which blocks do we need to work on? All of them. You're going to have to work with all of them, but you don't have to, worry about being bombarded by the blocks, because the way healing works, back to the reference of the onion and many layers and it being cyclical, meaning over the course of your entire life, probably you're going to be dealing with this. It doesn't all come at once. So I would say that whatever blocks, Chocolate Kiz, you can observe at this time, those are the ones you should be working on. Okay. I will notice with my own self, I'll sometimes have quite a few going on at once. And some of them are more like generational curses, and some of them are more from the trauma and the abuse, and some of them I put there. And it's like, it can feel overwhelming. But this is why, again, it's good to be organized, and it's good to stay centered and go at your own pace. Take your time, but be diligent. So it's really, I think what you're asking more is like, how do I identify the blocks? Okay. And it's, go back and listen to everything I said today. Your blocks are being revealed to you every day. If you're not sure you can sit, I would recommend your joy guide, who watches over your spiritual development, but also your mental and emotional well-being. Sit with your joy guide and take maybe 15 to 20 minutes where you just sit quietly and you ask your joy guide to show you where the blocks are. Ask your higher mind on a daily basis, where are the blocks? And then write it down, of course, like I said, pound them out one at a time. Okay, we're going to get to these. Now, I would also, just through the the first thing we talked about here today was awareness, meaning being mindful as you move through your day, as you move through the crowd, as you move through different environments. It's really there that the blocks may reveal most easily to some of you. So pay attention to when you're feeling it, I'm in the flow, everything's normal, everything's good, high vibing, everything's fine. And then brick wall. There you go. What the heck just happened? Why did everything shift? Why did I shift? Why did my thinking shift? Why did my interactions here shift? Why did my emotions shift? Okay. And remember the process. It goes, we think something, we feel something, we act something out. So you have to go backward. Okay. You're going to catch your action, but you have to go back. What was I feeling just before that? What was I thinking just before that? Okay. Let's move on to another one. Donna Liz says, you do need more followers. I do, Donna. Thank you. And, it's hard for me to gain followers because my stuff doesn't run well in the algorithm. I'm often on every platform that I'm on, cut off in the comment section, or I'm constantly against community guidelines. I talk about tough topics. I talk about things that involve maybe therapy or abuse or trauma and spirituality. And I don't just talk about like astrology and tarot. I talk about the deeper stuff in spirituality, which can be taboo. And then I talk about, people that are marginalized, and I talk about all kinds of world events, and I talk about, so I'm constantly slammed, and it makes it nearly impossible for my channels to grow. So thank you. Yes, I do need more followers. I need the support. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to show up and be like, this doesn't match. Well, social media doesn't want any of this being discussed. Let's move on to, okay, Donna Liz says, I have a question. Now that I'm older, at times I feel lost. When I was 5 years old, I knew who the heck I was, and I was very assertive of myself, and I find myself now at 35 wanting to go back to that state all the time. Yeah. So we really became authentically ourselves between like 5 and 6 years old. And we have a lot of brain development going on the right side of our brain, the intuitive side of our brain. We were most psychic and mediumistic up until that point. And then society gets their hands on us. So the religious systems tell us what's demonic and what's bad. And then the medical systems tell us you can't have an imaginary friend, and you can't play this way, and you can't move about this way, and you can't be this, and you can't be that. And then our parents reinforce that. And then we're basically slammed from every angle as we enter into school. So we lose who we were. And this doesn't just happen with intuitive intelligence, as I'm always telling my students and removing the blocks from that time from them so they could be intuitive again. It's not just that. It's that is some of the most dangerous self-abandonment that we go through is with our intuitive intelligence, but it also hits socially, and it hits you on such a personal level with your own self and identity, because you no longer recognize yourself. You're basically like put in a cage. And I like to watch videos of like cows who have gotten like out of the pen, or a chicken when it's actually free, to run around. And I make sure all my eggs are like free range, because I can never get these images out of my head, or a monkey who gets released back out into the jungle or whatever. When you think of any of these animals, we're nothing more than that. I mean, we really are just animals who've been trapped into a cage. It's just with us, it's all mental, and it came at you from all those angles, right? And then what you really need to spend a lot of time doing is getting in touch with who you were back then. So spend more time pretending that you were. Maybe an exercise that'll work for you, Donna Liz, is instead of seeing like your future self, maybe you see your 5-year-old self. And that makes sense to you right now at this point of development. I love that. Because it really is, we have 2 choices. You could either abandon yourself, or you could survive, and you could survive by abandoning yourself, let's say, or you could remain who you really were and enter into a world of grief. And it was probably just easier, to let go of some of that. But that's no longer acceptable. Okay. Okay, let's move on to another one. Chicken Mama said, great class. IV manifestation is the key. We already have the tools. Use them. P.S. I really have learned to dislike people too. Okay. So, um, yeah, and Jill, if you could just leave that up for a minute. It can it can really be that the reason you're unable to manifest, you're using all the laws of attraction techniques, you're listening to all the meditational and, YouTube vids, and you're like, why doesn't this work for me? Why doesn't this work for me? Don't ever forget, before we can have that, we must do the block removal. We have to get rid of what's either toxic, and not everything. You don't have to be pristine. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to remove the blocks and obstacles in regards to whatever you're trying to manifest. Not all of them, but that stuff, yes. So know how to break it down. And as soon as you want to achieve something, here's a good rule of thumb. As soon as I want to accomplish something brand new, I go, okay, what am I supposed to build? Okay, here's what I think it's going to look like. Now, I don't know how that's going to play out. I have to be fluid with that. But I have a ballpark idea on what I want it to look like. I know what I want it to feel like, and I know where it's coming from in my head. What visions have I had? What downloads have I received? What future premonitions have I had about it? Other people in my circle, in my soul tribe group, have they mentioned it? What did they say? What did they see? Okay, are we all on the same? Okay, good. I have an idea. And then it's get to work. And that means remove anything that's in the way. What is going to stop it from happening? And these things will pop up as you gravitate more in taking the blind steps in faith toward what you want to create. You're going to be shown, if you weren't already, what blocks and obstacles need to go. And that can be hard because some of it is personal habits, the way you think, relationships. Who would have thunk it? How is that connected to accomplishing this? Because everything's connected, because everything's like a spider web. And then your manifestation can really kick in. It may not be, people, that you're a bad manifester or that law of attraction doesn't work for you or any of that stuff. It could be that you have to do this part first. Okay. And then in regards to not liking people, yeah, it's really hard to like people. It's really hard to, and again, with the boundaries, I'll use being on social media as an example. I have to know, and I have for all the years I've been on social media, that, YouTube doesn't appreciate me talking about a bunch of stuff. TikTok hates my guts all around. Zuckerberg does not like probably half of what I put out. So what happens? I have to know. And then you've got your, people have very low IQs. I want to say this day and age, a lot of people are quite stupid. And so they're in the comment sections just saying dumb stuff all the time, like regurgitating it over and over again because they're needy and they're desperate and, they're not intelligent and they really don't have any personalities. So you've got what almost looks like a full troll section, in the comment section. So you have to adapt and adjust yourself to that type of environment. So whatever it is for you, you have to limit the amount of agitation that's going to come in. And for me, that's knowing every time I go out here, it's probably, not going to gain me a lot of traction as far as followers and stuff are concerned, but I don't look at the outcome. I look and I say, I am here to be of service and to do what I'm supposed to do. I'm not going to worry about that part of it. And I immediately, if I see a dumb comment, it's deleted, or I have assistants who deal with the comment sections. There were years where I never dealt with a single comment ever. You have to set boundaries with people because they really will jade you to a point that you eventually don't want to deal with anybody anymore. And every person can fit into a negative category. So we have to be mindful. Again, the people part of today's curriculum may end up being the most of it for a lot of you. Okay. Keeping a clean environment of healthy people that actually care is key. Do we have another question or comment coming in here? Just want to say thank you, everyone, for joining. It looks like we are at time. I will be back. I have a show on Wednesday. I don't know if it's like my Ask Ivy show or where I am. It may be one of my Get a Grip shows, but I know I have a show coming up. Maybe it isn't this Wednesday. Maybe it's next Wednesday. But we are relaunching Late Night Circus episode number 3. Jill, if you could pop that up on the screen, if you have those dates. I don't know, maybe you don't have those dates. If you could even just put it in the comment section, that would be great. I'm also relaunching Late Night Circus episode number 4. And I just did sort of like a chat here. I did a live on the 4B movement, my first 2 years, and what you can expect if you are debating on joining the 4B movement. So these are going to go out. We have Late Night Circus number 3 is going out on the 22nd. Is there a specific time on that, Jill? That's okay. It'll probably be more in the evening. Okay, 7 p.m. So you guys can rewatch that. And then we have Late Night Circus episode number 4 is going to relaunch. And again, this is all here on YouTube at Ask Ivy on the 24th at, I'm assuming 7 p.m. And then the 4B movement, my first 2 years, what to expect, is going to relaunch on the 26th. Okay, so check that out. Follow me here on YouTube at Ask Ivy. Thanks so much. Bye, Donna. Okay, thank you, Jill. Everybody, have a great night. I'll see you soon.